So It Goes, a documentary by Brendan Martone. Kurt Vonnegut, with over 25 publications throughout his career, initially joined the list of literary celebrities during the 60s and 70s. His writing is strongly influenced by the tragic yet interesting events that occurred in his life. These instances helped shape him into the man he became and helped his stories take the brilliant form that they did. Vonnegut was born on November 11, 1922 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Growing up in the Depression made life difficult for him and his family. His father and grandfather were forced to close down their businesses, and young Kurt was taken out of private school. His mother, Edith, would end up becoming addicted to alcohol and prescription drugs. Vonnegut's pessimistic attitude is definitely influenced by his parents' reaction to their losses during the Depression. Vonnegut became serious about writing during his high school years after he began to write for the school's newspaper. These years would also change his life with the beginning of World War II when he was 16. After graduating high school, he attended the University of Cornell to study chemistry like his brother before him. He did, however, save some time to work for the school's paper like he had before. At age 20, he left college after 2 years and enrolled in the Army. Shortly after being shipped off to Europe, Vonnegut heard news that his mother had committed suicide, an act that would haunt him for the rest of his life. When he finally arrived in Europe, Vonnegut fought in the Battle of the Bulge in Germany. He was captured by German soldiers and was forced to work as a prisoner of war in Dresden, Germany. On February 13, 1945, the United States completed a firebombing raid on the city of Dresden. Vonnegut survived the raid by seeking shelter in the meat locker of a slaughterhouse. His experience in the war would inspire him to write his novel, Slaughterhouse-Five, which retells his real-life tale of the bombing of Dresden and focuses on the destruction of war. The many encounters of death during this time in his life will lead him to give it a large role in many of his books. After coming home from the war, Vonnegut married his high school sweetheart, Jane Cox. A job at General Electric helped him provide for his family and also support the short stories he would write on the side. He quickly figured out that he would have to evolve from his short stories and begin writing novels when his sister died of cancer in 1957. Vonnegut and his wife took in his sister's 3 children, and the family was in need of more money. His first novel following his sister's death was titled Cat's Cradle, and it quickly gained popularity. This particular novel in Vonnegut's vast collection follows a writer named Jonah on his task of collecting material for a book to be called The Day the World Ended. His intention was for it to be an account of what Dr. Hohenecker, a scientist who helped make the atomic bomb, had done on the day it was dropped. As Jonah interviews the doctor's children, his life is quickly tangled up with theirs, and he finds out that they hold the power to freeze the world. In Cat's Cradle, Vonnegut tries to convey an idea that people cannot be trusted with the lives of others when they have access to weapons of mass destruction. An idea that Vonnegut saw firsthand as he lived to see the bombing of Dresden as well as the bombing of Hiroshima. Books like Slaughterhouse-Five and Cat's Cradle would help make him one of the most famous authors of the 60s and 70s. But even with all his success in literature, family trouble haunted his personal life, and it would often show up as a topic in his novels. He and Jane ultimately got a divorce. He left his home in Cape Cod and made the move to New York City. He remarried to a photographer named Jill Kremens in 1979. The two were happily married, but it did not help Vonnegut from going through a dance with depression and attempting to commit suicide in 1984. Nevertheless, he would continue to produce novel after novel. The 70s and 80s brought novels such as Breakfast of Champions, 1973, Dead-Eye Dick, 1982, and Galapagos, 1985. These, like many other Vonnegut novels, display his strong feelings and disappointment towards society. Vonnegut's desire to share his views on life persuaded him to continue to write into his later years. Organizations like the American Humanist Association gave him another platform to speak out on what he believed. His last book, which was really a collection of essays and poems, came in 2001 and was titled A Man Without a Country. 6 years later, Vonnegut passed away on April 11, 2007, after a fall on the steps of his New York home. Kurt Vonnegut is a literary idol and will be best remembered for his satiristic writing style and the evident humanist and socialist values in his novels. The messages he left with his readers reminds them to judge their society as well as themselves. He touched the minds of millions of readers by attempting to tackle thought-provoking topics that include religion, politics, and war. In addition to his readers, he was able to influence the literary community as a whole by inspiring many writers and authors. His mix of science fiction, philosophy, humor, and personal experiences is debated by critics as being a new writing style, a certain Vonnegut style. Even though he can no longer produce novels, his words live on through his growing number of followers and the many English classes around the world that examine and analyze his books.
Don't you forget about me.